Let's look at this the new CPI now, the way it is captured. Do you think it's likely to change the spending patterns and the consumption patterns of Nigerians?
Yeah, I think, anyway, thanks again for bringing me over. I think from the analysis of Dr. Ayo, it just tells me that there's a fundamental change in methodology. You know, inflation rate may not be declining in reality, price of commodities may not be declining in reality, but of course MBS has changed the methodology for which CPI is computed, just like they did in the labor force survey. Arguing that if you work for 1 hour, you cannot be said to be unemployed, as the case could be. So this time again, what they have done essentially is to change the methodology to reflect contemporary reality in a way that will be that will be as close as possible to reality. And of course, when you are changing methodology, you are just doing it in conformity with patterns, global best practices, as usually practiced by reputable organizations like the IMF, the World Bank, and these organizations, I'm aware, they also collaborate with. So the change in methodology is reflecting the new reality, which is also going to be helpful to the central bank, with regards to the fixing of interest rate, whether it's going to go up or down, and eventually can also be educative, for investors, for them to be able to gauge appropriately the inflation rate, and imagine where they should plow their resources. But with respect to affecting the life of the average citizen.
Yes.
If you look at the overarching picture of the economy itself, yes, maybe 2 years ago, it was actually, we're in dire straits, but in the last couple of months, we're witnessing some sort of relief, yes, the Naira may not be at the level at which we want it to be, but it is relatively stabilizing. And the astronomical rise we're witnessing in the first instance, at the time it was even about 1,900, then it stabilized at some level to about 1,700. Then the last time I checked, it was even around 1,005 to 1,006. I don't know what it is this morning.
I think it has dropped to about 1,004.
That's all right. So we are witnessing a gradual level of stability in the economy. And of course, fuel prices as well may not be at the level at which we want it to be, but we're also witnessing some level of, predictability, stability, such that the frenetic increase we saw in the first instance, that was creating anxiety, in the macroeconomic environment is also declining, So if we're able to predict the economy better, through stability, then of course we should expect these changes really to rub off on inflation, on prices of goods and services, as the case could be. And I listened very carefully to Dr. Ayo once again. I saw how they try to make a distinction between consumer patterns, looking at practices that we ordinarily want to ignore. Most of the time, people don't necessarily eat at home; they eat in restaurants, and that's why you see restaurants thriving. You see accommodation booming as well. Beyond the traditional hotel system we were having before, we now have Airbnb. And of course, so many investments going into the hotel industry. So, but how do we capture this change in patterns, if not through a new method, of computing CPI, which I imagine that MBS has rightly done. But overall, I want to see MBS as a quasi-research institution, that thrives on empiricism, and if they thrive on empiricism, it simply means that all their data, all the things they have gone through, is done through realistic methods, techniques that lead us to the arithmetization of processes and procedures. And if you look at it on the bigger scale, we're talking about our common essences, are being broken down into figures so that we can see it as appropriately as it can be, which is why the challenge they might have, which again we should continue to speak to, is believability. believability should not also be their problem, because they are working not from a position of emotion or sentiment, but simply looking at figures. And figures emanate from the realities on ground, which they have tried to capture in methods that are not just ingenious to them, or not just primary to them, but compliant with global standards, as the case could be.
All right.